Hello, everyone. This is Joanne Lantz with another episode of Masters of Extraordinary Proficiency, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And do I have a wonderful guest today? I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Farina of the United States Marine Corps. Welcome, Jen.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness, I called you Jen. Is it okay? May I call you Jen?
No, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh, we are so delighted to get to know you and meet you in the next 30 minutes. And tell me a little bit about yourself. You're a lieutenant colonel.
Yes, I'm a lieutenant colonel, active duty in the United States Marine Corps. I'm currently stationed in Virginia, working out of the Pentagon. I've been in close to 24 years, plus or minus. And most of my time has been out of the East Coast, but you can always deploy out of the East Coast. So anywhere from Virginia down to Florida, 2-3 times over. But again, it's been a while.
24 years in the service, that's a generation in so many ways. You were born in Western Mass in a really large family full of children and pets and foster siblings. How did this household of activity that you grew up in prepare you for the Marine Corps?
Well, funny that you brought that up. I mean, 4 kids, 2 brothers, 1 sister. My last memory of having foster children was as young as probably 3 or 4 years old, and my parents were just generous. A lot of times opening the house to children that a lot of times it was just them passing through. Parents had us active with sports, had us very busy, and then I think a lot of it was also kind of survival because you don't want to be lost amongst your siblings as well as the foster children. But then again, all the activities and living out in the country kind of just started to build you. You were able to kind of thrive in that environment. I don't want to call it Darwinism, but that's all those different types of elements start to kind of influence not only where I was, but I think it had a lot of impact where I am right now. And just living in that chaotic environment, I believe with the Marine Corps and a lot of things I've done over my life, it's just allowed me to kind of take advantage of a lot of the activity and not get lost in it, but kind of just enjoy the ride and be able to kind of move forward with it and kind of drive it rather than just getting consumed by it.
Walk me through when you went to college and then you ended up in the USMC. How did you end up being a Marine? From a big family and lots of pets, and how did you end up in the Corps?
I have to kind of be frank about that. When I finished college, I was playing college soccer. I was juggling a lot of jobs. I knew where I wanted to be, but after graduating, kind of got a little lost for a little bit. I had a younger brother who joined, and he decided to go the enlisted route. I went the officer route, but I was just like, my God, he knows exactly what he wants to do. And I remember just one day turning and just saying, walked into recruit training post there, didn't even look at any of the other services, and said, I want to go here. And I have to give credit to my brother that just because he had a plan, it helped me figure out my plan. And when I walked in, it was in a matter of 2 weeks, they had me shipped out. So it was funny because my husband I was dating at the time said, "Oh, I don't think the dating's going well. You're going in 2 weeks." So it was very quick. But a lot of it was I was looking for a little direction in life. And the Marine Corps, when I went in, it just allowed me to put some structure and some direction in my life at the time that I just really needed.
You mentioned you were playing soccer in college, and you have some experience with the 4 branches in soccer. Tell me about that.
Oh, absolutely. So when I was a young officer, and a lot of this has to do with, and thank God for my parents allowing me to play year-round soccer, travel. I played Division One, and then I was still actively playing coaching before I came into the Marine Corps. And then the Marine Corps had an opportunity for a service soccer. And so I tried out, end up getting selected. And what happens usually is that the services end up competing. They come up with a team, and then that service, joint all armed forces, will travel globally to go compete with other militaries around the world. So the first 3 years, I had the opportunity to go compete. It's not a, doing a different job. You kind of have to balance it, and it's a few weeks away to go compete and come back. But I was able to get absorbed into the system. So there was an opportunity for me to actually, they call it a technical committee member. It's an all armed forces rep. So I was able to apply for it. And fortunately enough, I got selected and I started to represent both men and women's soccer for the all armed forces. So for the last, I want to say for the last 15 years, I've been fortunate enough to not only do individual men and women's championships, but they'll come together usually every 2 to 3 years, they'll get together and do a military championship. And then on a global scale, they'll do a military world championship where soccer ends up just being one of the sports of all the different countries that get together. And a lot of times they'll use a country that is probably in the line for the Olympics. And they'll test a lot of their venues, and a lot of times we'll go into there and we'll run our events. So, I've been very fortunate, been to, South America, been to Europe a number of times, been to Africa. But again, a very fortunate opportunity that go run this event where you see a lot of your U.S. Um, um, military people representing the country playing sports, and a lot of those feed into the Olympics. But having the opportunity to go host the event with the host country, a small technical committee to actually run the tournament with the officials and the teams. So again, just a great opportunity.
And that's like in addition to your day job. I mean, this is
I
not
really
your
don't advertise. I do a lot
yeah.
of it, but you always kind of do this on a non-interfere. So again, this is not my full time. I'm a communications officer by trade, and very, very busy with that. So this is kind of maybe like a once a year non-interfere basis, but it sounds so grandiose when it actually goes off. So you're looking for 2 to 3 weeks with non-interference, and leadership is very supportive for the most part because you're not transferring duties. You are going out, you're representing the military, you're representing US interests, and you're representing your service. So it is a great opportunity. So they kind of balance it, but it is non-interference from, what I do in the Marine Corps.
You mentioned earlier that you can be deployed from the East Coast, and without sharing any secrets, you have been deployed a couple times, at least, I think, to the Middle East. What leadership skills did you need to command your troops there? Don't share any secrets now.
Oh, no, no. Secrets, yes. But no, first time I deployed was back in 2007. Went to Iraq. It was ended up being about 13 months. I went out as very similar to a corporate world as an operations officer, running all the functions of that organization's for, in this case, communications. Um, Unfortunately, I think it was kind of if you survive not getting fired and getting beat up and figuring out a way how to push forward with your organization. Sometimes I think it's survival skills, but I also had a great team of folks, and it's really how can you work with your team of folks in order to accomplish the mission. So back in '07, I went overseas again as an operations officer, and then I was very fortunate. I got promoted out there, and I took over a company, and what that means is I probably had a bunch of probably about close, just probably under 90 Marines that worked for me doing telecommunications in the middle of Iraq. And you work with, just like in the comm world with any of the Ma Bell associations, is working with a lot of other organizations in order to bring up that infrastructure. A lot of that, the Marine Corps builds you for that. The leadership, the Marine Corps is the only organization when you come in as a young officer that every single officer goes in for 6 months of really leading people, running organizations. Doesn't mean we're all good at it, but they train you. And then as you go out to your units and you have your specialty, me as a communications officer, they continue to reinforce that, build that culture and environment around you. And then the Marines around you, whether they're above you or below you, reinforce that. So back in '07, I was very fortunate to do that. And then a lot of my other overseas time, specifically to Iraq, I was down at a combatant command down in Florida. They call it CENTCOM. Went over there a lot of times, not necessarily leading troops, but leading planning efforts. More so, I'd say 2009 to 13 when we first came out of Iraq. And then I had a number of other occasions to go in there, and it was more at a planning level. Outside of the Middle East, I've spent a lot of time. I was fortunate to be a Marine Security Guard commander. So I was down in Fort Lauderdale. So what that job entails is you're pretty much the oversight for the Marines down in South America. And right now there's about 15 embassies and consulates down there. So very similar to leadership, you're leading those Marines that are working for the State Department underneath the ambassador and the security regional security officer to help them kind of secure, elements of the embassy. And so it's more of a distributed type of leadership where you don't get to see them every day. So very fortunate to have that experience down in South America. But I think the takeaway is regardless of whether you're in Iraq, you're in South America, or you're back in DC or wherever you are, is adjusting your leadership or adjusting your management, kind of like almost in a servant model. That be very responsive to your people, because you're going to have to adjust your people and yourself to be able to achieve or be able to meet whatever tasks you're trying to accomplish. Regardless of me being a communications officer, I think you can actually almost apply it to anything.
So you were, in addition to your Middle East deployments, you were leading teams of Marines who were providing security to the embassies all over South America? Is that what you were doing?
Wow. Yeah, so what the Marine Corps has in partnership with the State Department is the Marine Corps has the responsibility of post, I don't want to call it a post, but a security post with dealing with encryption and dealing with just kind of chancellery security. And they augment the security office down there. So if you go globally and I'm not saying every embassy and consulate has Marines, but there's a large number of them that have the responsibility of being present there. And how we are set up, I was very fortunate enough to be assigned as the commanding officer down for South America. Those Marines, those detachments, all enlisted, worked for the State Department. So they don't fall underneath the direct cog of, regular active duty Marines. They're active duty Marines, but they're working for the State Department doing state diplomatic responsibilities down there. But again, I was very fortunate to go down there.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please.
So within the work you did in the Middle East, or the work you did in South America, what was one of the most difficult challenges you faced in leadership?
I would say probably the most difficult is not being so committed that you're right or your way is the way to go. So even though it may be correct or right, listening to the people around you, because there are definitely other ways of dealing with it. And then the other part with leadership is also recognizing when things aren't working. And unfortunately, in some of those circumstances, you kind of have, I don't want to say take a knee, but you're not driving the train all the time. So how do you adjust to be present? How do you adjust when you know the circumstances aren't in your favor, but you still need to show up and do your job. You still need to show up when you know, I hate to say it, people don't like you. You are not people's favorite person, and they don't want to see you, so it's finding that way to connect with people so you don't lose your people, but you're still moving forward with your mission. So it's not being so rigid, but it's finding a way to be flexible and responsive and adaptable and doing it every day. So I'm a checklist person. I try to be, but it's not a checklist to hold everyone accountable. It's to remind myself, is this relevant right now? If it's not relevant, why isn't it? Why doesn't this person fit in this box? So I can understand and then I can accommodate. I mean, it's very much like coaching. Instead of competing against another team, the other team's a task, it's a person, it's a situation. And how do I adjust? How do I adjust my team to be able to respond to that? How do I build a program, and how do I not get caught in just being a beat cop or a firefighter? And how can I kind of do that at the same time, have my people, but have them look at long and moving forward? And so it's sustainable, that we're relevant. I would just say, in short, don't get so fixed that you're right, and it has to be you getting it over the finish line.
That's interesting, because my unconscious bias is, I think of the military, of which I don't have any exposure or experience, as being structured. And you're talking about being adaptable as a leader, to adapt to your team and the environment and what you're ultimately trying to accomplish. I can see why you're successful. I really can. You mentioned that you work in the corporate office. We would call it the home office. I think you call it in terms the mothership, the Pentagon, is, because that's where you are now. Is the Pentagon like the place to work?
No, everyone tries to avoid it. No, I'm kidding. The challenge with I'm not in the Pentagon now. Let me just say that I'd get in trouble because there's no one class up there. But anyways, what I would say is that the challenge with any sort of headquarters, even if it's corporate, I think this kind of transcends. It's not just the military. Is everyone, or there's at least an understanding that things are slow and it's rigid, and it only moves so fast. I found, unfortunately, this is my second tour at the Pentagon, is being able to understand that, to recognize that processes are either not up to date or in step with one each other when you go organization to organization. I think what I believe is becoming a master of the situation and knowing how to navigate it in order to get things done to be relevant to everyone else, whether you call it the enterprise, the service, the interagency, is how, just like Joanne, if we're working together out there, is what do I need, what considerations do I need to take to have our two companies work together? Because we probably have internal processes that are similar, or excuse me, the end states are similar, but how you get there is different. Mm-hmm. And so when we start having these tasks, it's how do we navigate this? How do we make this happen collectively, knowing that there's such differences or challenges in processes? And so I know with the Marine Corps, we're going through a lot of changes right now, which is fantastic, being a relevant force. But it's also recognizing the other services, the interagency, all these different types of elements that will influence that. But going back to the headquarters, how is it working up there? If you know the system, you know the process, you're flexible, and you're able to convince other people to be like that also, it can actually be a very productive environment. This is where all the stuff happens, and you have to be relevant. And right now, the military is trying to be as much as possible relevant, not only as a military, but relevant to society, because we are a cross section of society. You can look over your shoulder and you'll see a lot of people that have either served. They'll make the comment of, oh, this is not like the old Corps. But it doesn't matter. It's the core. It's the service. We are a cross section of society. We deal with the same challenges that society deals with. So how do you move forward with that? But the mothership, we all come here at some point to do our part for the service.
You know, there's an analogy I can think of is the mothership is our home office, and yet if you're in the field, things move much faster than they do in the home office. You've given me a lot to think about in terms of how to make the home office flexible and nimble.
We also call it the crossroads for the Marines. So south of there, we have Quantico. So we call it the crossroads of the Marine Corps, that all the officers come back here. A lot of the training, professionalization, and then everyone will do a headquarters type of job, because everything that you've learned and built through experience, how do you contribute at a service or a headquarters level to kind of institutionalize, codify, make it very relevant?
You know, experience, 24 years is a lot of experience. How has it changed from when you originally joined to today?
I'm not 23 years old anymore. The fitness has changed. That keeps going up as I get older, so that's kind of off.
Okay.
It definitely has, there's a lot of changes. Younger, stronger, sharper, smarter Marines are coming in. So talented. And we're still dealing with the same society challenges that, we want to stay bipartisan. Everyone comes from different walks of life. I think the biggest challenge is we have so many more different people. And maybe it's because I'm a little bit higher up in the food chain instead of being the one down at the bottom, that now you're looking back and you're seeing all those different things going on and you're convincing yourself that it's different, but it's really not. A lot of your senior leadership has, now have the same thoughts of the junior leadership back then. It has changed, but I think it's changed for the better. And I think it keeps the institution from, I hate to say, being institutionalized, that we need to be listening and being responsive how to train and lead these younger service members that are coming in. How do we capitalize on this talent and be able to tap into it to bring us to that next level? And it's not only making us relevant. I kind of laugh at this because I play on this soccer team right now, and I'm the old lady on the team. And I'm always convinced that the only reason they take me out to play is I'm down the hall and I'm crazy enough to go out with them. But they're all like 25 years younger than me. And then you get this old lady out there running, and they keep coming back. But it's finding that way to connect, understand what they're going through, not to be their friends, but to be able to be relatable. And I'll tell you, I'm a player on the team. He's a staff sergeant now, but he was a sergeant at the time, and he was the captain. And I'm just like, hey, I'm just here to play. And we've had a couple of times where things have gotten kind of soccer, things get going with other teams. They all get hyped up to play against the Marines, and they'll get wound up. And then that's the only time I think I came out, maybe once or twice, but it was really to back up my guys, because you'll have other people because they're from another service and they'll know that someone's a junior enlisted. And then I'll come out and they'll like, I'm sorry, derail here, whether you keep this or not. But it's just like, some Army guy will come out and say, where's your ID card? And then I'll come out and I'll say, where's your ID card? So it's keeping it balanced where the younger Marines or the younger generation can relate to you. You can work together. You have this on your collar for a reason, but this on your collar should not separate you from being relatable and being able to lead Marines, work with Marines, regardless of what's on your collar, but be relevant. I guess that was my takeaway.
I can relate to that, because as I see new colleagues join our organization, and they are talented, sharper, their technical skills are just amazing. And it seems almost an extension of their body in terms of their technical skills.
And it's scary. We get entrenched.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's trusting them. I have such talented officers right now, and it's me saying, how much risk can I take? Or can I hate to call it a punch in the head, let them do this. It may not be how I would do it, but if they're going to get it over the finish line and I give them this much space, even though they're bumping off the walls, if they can get it over, it's okay. Because I don't need to be a single point of failure. It's not about me. It's about the organization. It's about the mission. It's about the Marines. If it was about me, that's when you start getting confused with what leadership is, micromanagement is, and just basic supervision and letting your people, grow and actually be a part of driving the organization.
That's really profound. That really is. You also have gone back for some leadership education, I understand, just recently. Again, when I say again, because education is ongoing in your career. Why and how often do you go back for more education?
I should do more.
Right.
I do believe, I know with my junior Marines and folks that work for me, I think as a whole, and it's not just the military, I think any organization, sometimes we forget that we need to train our people. The institution as a large, we do entry level. That's how we get them in. But it's also, that sustainment and that build. I know that I've more recently, I think it's because I'm getting an older in age, because I've been getting more junior guys. I have to consciously remind myself, I have to build these guys. It's not just the institution, it's the immediate organization or the unit. Then I also had to take a pause and make sure I was doing it for myself. It's great to do on the job training. We all succeed as we get older. Just throw me in, I'll figure it out. But then having that pause in education, it's not just the material itself, it's networking, it's connecting with other people. That whole environment kind of starts to get you recentered again about, being open to change, understanding and reminding yourself you don't know everything. We call it professional military education. And it's not always military. Right now the military does a lot with MIT, a lot of private institutions, a lot of different skill bridges. And so we do a lot of partnerships with industry. So we, aren't just doing this from a military perspective. I mean, we have people at Harvard, pick your flavor depending on what your specialty is, but it is to develop professionals. So not only that you're relatable, but we have big problems. We want critical thinkers. And then we also need to not be doing the same thing that keeps kind of having us chase our tail. So professional education, whether it's civilian, military, is absolutely essential in developing the whole individual, the whole Marine, regardless of age.
You've given me a lot to think about. Again, I can adapt that to our organization, certainly. What advice do you have for young people who travel their own personal road from Western Massachusetts in a big family or a small family to the Pentagon?
What I would say is, continue to dream, continue to be flexible. I did not see myself being 24 years in the military, but then when I relook at it, the military is just the uniform. I did see the person that I wanted to be. So I guess I would say don't get trapped in the cover. I would say that the path, first of all, the way that you go is the ride is probably the most exciting. Taking the path less traveled is exciting. Learn how to get up every single time someone puts you down.
Yeah.
But don't get lost or frustrated because that end image, the outward cover, I had an image of where I wanted to be in life with a family and a lot of larger pictures, still being married with 2 kids, a house, all this other stuff, having a plan and a partner. The military was the vehicle. And it wasn't just the military, it was a lot of other things. It was the people I engaged, the travel that I did. I would just open up your aperture that you are just not the person that's caught in the backyard and you never see beyond it. And if you have a dream, be willing to just make a decision and do it, and understand that you're going to fall and failure is okay. It's just as to whether you get up and move forward. You know, do you have a bigger dream? Have you reflected? And enjoy the ride. And it's okay to get put down. It's just get up, take a step forward, figure it out. What's the next plan?
Wow. Wow. That's also very profound. You mentioned 24 years. Jen, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm right now coming to a crossroads. I've had some great experience in my life. I was able to do security guard. I was able to work with USAID in the State Department. I've done a lot of fascinating travel and just have such great experiences in the military. The next 5 years is really doing a reflection where I am in the military, but I also have to look at the next chapter. And it's where can I go from here? Because, sometimes I think the military is a young woman sport. So at some point I need to grow up. But I'd like to move on to something, close a good solid chapter here over the next 5 years, but move on to something that's going to give me as much of a challenge, as much of an experience so I can continue to build. Not only build myself, but, be an example for my children, hopefully be a mentor to others, but also continue to learn from folks and maybe be a part of a larger team where I can contribute.
Well, you truly are an extraordinary person, and anyone listening to this interview, there's a lot to gather and wrap their heads around. I'm going to listen to it again myself. And you've shared some wonderful, wonderful experiences and thoughts on leadership. I just want to thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Farina of USMC. You truly are an extraordinary person. Thank you for spending your time here today. I think is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, I just greatly appreciate you taking the time to allow me to kind of just have this interview and to engage, because it was also an opportunity just to reflect. Just to reflect, am I going in the right direction? Am I doing the right things? It's a natural pause, not only about myself, but how I'm working with my people. How I'm working for my boss. Am I taking care of my boss? Am I doing the right thing? Leadership as well as mentoring or just following goes up and down the chain. So I just greatly appreciate you inviting me to be able to just talk.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much.
Bye.